it's no wonder that so many people are as sick as they are. If they make that conscious decision that their body can heal itself, it can. 95% of illness is related to diet and lifestyle. What's in the food, what's in the water, what's in the atmosphere. My road to health took, trial and error, but most people don't understand what is possible because they've been told their entire life that if they get XYZ illness, that's it, it's game over. When our body is dealing with a parasite load, it actually affects our immune system in a negative way. I've released like some 20-inch worms.
Wow.
There's no way that 20-inch worm just happened last week.
Welcome to The Way Forward, the podcast that dives deep into how technology shapes our health and well-being. From digital wellness to tech innovation to the effects of electromagnetic fields, we cover the environmental, social, and physical implications of technology. Ready to navigate the digital landscape with confidence? Set your dial to discovery and tune in. You're listening to The Way Forward. Julie Brar, thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so this sounds horrible, but I'm always like, I stalked you a little bit before the episode, and I was kind of getting a little bit of your background story of how you came to where you are now, and it's really incredible. So I just want to start there for anyone who's listening that maybe hasn't gotten to know you yet, to give them a little insight of your journey.
Mm-hmm. How far back do we want to go?
I want to go all the way. I want to go all the way back to you leaving your home.
Okay, yeah. So I left home at 15. Yeah. Now when I think back, I'm like, how did I do that? I was, for those that don't know, you've never seen me, you don't know who I am. I was raised in a very, very traditional South Asian household, and my parents were very strict. I was going to be married off at some point, and they made that very clear. And I decided at the ripe young age of 15 that I was going to take matters into my own hands, and I left home. I was a ward of the state. I went into the foster care system and started working like in high school. I worked for Pizza Hut.
That's awesome.
And put myself through school and eventually found somebody that I fell in love with, and I thought we were going to create a life together. And this is 2024. In 2012, he passed away very suddenly from a heart attack.
Wow.
And that was a huge pivot in my life, because at the time I was teaching yoga, I was in the film business, I was acting, and I think I was producing at the time too. And my life stopped, literally. It just stopped. And and I got a massive redirection. And, if you talk to many people in the health space, they've gone through some kind of trauma. So I went through a lot of trauma on my life's journey. And about a year and a half after my husband's passing, I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's. So Hashimoto's is an autoimmune condition. And what I can say now as a practitioner, looking backwards, it all makes sense in terms of why illness manifested in my life or in my body. But at the time, I was just like, it was just another blow through a series of blows.
Yeah.
That I like to call universal bitch slaps that I was getting.
I love it.
The universe will very gently try and get you to change directions, and sometimes it'll just like full on make you stop. So, I went on medication. I did the whole Western medical thing, and I was hoping I was going to feel better, and I didn't feel better. I just kept feeling worse. I kept gaining weight. I was depressed. I lived with a lot of chronic pain, like all the time. I don't actually understand why I didn't medicate myself, because I was in so much physical pain. And I was in a car accident. I'm laughing about it now, but I was in a car accident in 2017. And I had sort of stitched my life back together. Like, I was teaching yoga, and on the surface, things seemed to be okay. I'm was in a new relationship and, had all sort of the things that
The
people tend
boxes were checked.
the boxes were checked. And so on the surface level, I had like what looked like success, but I was really suffering. Life was still a struggle. I was still medicating daily. I was still on thyroid medication. I wasn't feeling better. I was very unhappy, very depressed. And so I was in this car accident, and I was in two casts. I didn't break any bones, but I seriously strained my left ankle and my right wrist. So I was in two casts, and I had to stop again. Like, my partner had to dress me. I couldn't do anything for myself. I had to be fed. And then that really gave me pause. I was like, I need to like change something. Like there's something in me that's really not working. And so I had this insight that I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to figure out how to fix my body because I knew the body could heal itself, but there was nothing that I was doing that was really working. Like I would meditate, and meditation, I think the reason I wasn't medicated was because meditation did help me to manage my pain, but it never got rid of it.
Right.
And yoga helped to bring down the level of pain, but it never got rid of it. So I knew there was something else. And so I ended up going back to school for health coaching. And that very quickly, like within a week, I was like, well, I know this is not it, but I'll just do this program because I paid for it. So then I did.
That's awesome.
Then I did a nutrition training course, and I was like, yeah, this is kind of the speed. So then when I got out of school, I applied everything I learned in terms of nutrition and health coaching, and I still wasn't where I wanted to be in terms of my health. And so eventually that led me to studying regenerative health, which is where I am now. I've completely changed my outlook on life, how I live my life day to day, but also how I practice. When people come to me, we're really talking about addressing health at the cell level. This is not something that I was doing previous to all of the stuff that I went through. So I really have a very different understanding of how the body works and how everything comes together. And, people are always looking for like, oh, what's the thing? What's the magic thing? It's like, there's never one thing that makes, if my journey has taught me anything, it's this. It's never one thing that makes you sick, and it's never one thing that's going to help you to create health. So you need to really create your wellness toolkit. Now, I'm very blessed that I have all kinds of things that I use in my wellness toolkit that allow me to function the best that I've ever functioned. Like I'm better than I was before I got sick.
Yeah.
But if I think back on my life, I had childhood trauma. I went through abuse, physical and sexual abuse as a child. I left home at a very young age. Money stress was a big part of my story for a big part of my life. Losing a partner suddenly, the worst kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And so all these things were stacking up. And along the way, I didn't always have the best diet habits or treat myself that kindly, toxic jobs, toxic relationships, toxic environment.
Yeah.
You put it all together, it's kind of a perfect storm. And then it's no wonder that so many people are as sick as they are. And so part of my mission now is to really raise awareness and educate people on number one, how their body works. And number two, no matter what condition they're in, if they make that conscious decision that their body can heal itself, it can. Now it's just a matter of implementation. And that implementation is everything from what you think about your situation and yourself, to how you feed yourself, to how you move your body, to how you detox your body, to becoming aware of what's happening in the environment and becoming mindful of bringing in certain tools and biohacks to help support health. Nobody has the luxury in these modern times to bury their head in the sand and think that it's all going to be okay. Now, if you're not dealing with a chronic illness, consider yourself lucky. But most people have something going on. They may not be talking about it.
Yeah.
But they're self-medicating probably through alcohol, through food, through coffee, through bad relationships. They're doing all of these things to try to cope.
Yeah.
And I'm the person that says, just do the work.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. It's amazing to me how many like medical like professionals in this field that have gone the other way, that have gone kind of more like, you know, the naturopathic way or the holistic way, they all have gone through such intense trauma or some kind of either actual life trauma or physical, like, you know, physical health stuff. And it's wild to me because it's like, okay, you have to have some kind of like ember in you to just keep pushing forward and to just keep saying, no, I'm not going to let this take me out. I'm not going to let this stop me. So you have a very particular fire in you. That's very
Listen,
special.
I'm talking about it so lightly, so calmly. I've had many dark nights of the soul. I like,
Sure.
especially after my husband passed away, like I spent many days crying on my kitchen floor, ugly crying, like tears
Yeah.
coming out of my nose. Like it
Yeah.
was, and I just put it in. It's funny. I think it was Steve Jobs that says your everything starts to make sense as you look back. I'm paraphrasing him and I'm
Right.
butchering what he
Sure.
said. But like in hindsight, everything looks you it starts to make sense. The puzzle pieces make sense. And so in my life, one of the pivotal things that I started to do was when I was in theater school, I found the practice of yoga. And I know a lot of people think that yoga is devil worship. It's not. I assure you, I'm not worshiping any devils when I'm on the mat. I'm just stretching my body and moving and allowing, because we have our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, our spiritual body. And I'm allowing those bodies to simply come into alignment through the poses. That's all the poses are. The poses are meant to bring about connection, you
Yeah.
know. Union is really what it is. That's what the practice is about. It's about union. And yes, there's all these deities and whatever, right? Like that's not um my fiance knows more about that side of things than I do personally. And I'm South Asian and he's white. So that just goes to show you that, you
That's
know,
awesome.
so but that practice eventually led me to meditation. And meditation, at least the tradition that I studied under and study under, taught me a lot about being a little bit more pragmatic about this human experience.
Mm.
And so when I was crying on my kitchen floor many, many, many times after my husband's death, um, I was just asking the universe, God, consciousness, angels, whatever you believe in, whatever you want to call it. I was just asking, okay, how is this helping me? Because
Mm.
it sure doesn't feel like this is helping me right now. This really feels like a kick in the teeth, and it's brutal how painful it was. Um, and then I just trusted that the things that were meant for me were going to start showing up in my life. And they did. They didn't it's not like I got my answer the next day or the day after. I just had to be really, really patient and just trust. And eventually, like, now here I am 12 years later, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense then. It didn't make sense.
Mm. I was talking, do you know Dr. Jill Carnahan?
No, I
Okay,
don't.
so she's like an environmental toxicity expert, and she was saying how like those big traumas that we go through really help us. I mean, they're hard, like it's hard to say they help us, but in the end, when you're saying like looking back at the puzzle pieces, they really do help us to understand the like connection between like intuition and our physical health. Like I went through that whenever I had my son. I had him at home, but then we had to make a lot of like really tough choices in taking him to the hospital and then leaving. AMA and then going through all of that and all of the things that we did. But that moment when it was kind of like, we might walk out of here without a child, and having to come to terms with that, but also to like, because in my mind, I am, it's always like, wait, I did all the right things. I said all the right things. I ate all the right foods. I I ate all organic. I did my yoga practice. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, I'm following the rules. I'm checking all of the boxes of what it means to be a good person. And then realizing that, like you were saying, like, this is the life experience, and having to go into a room with my husband and say, we have to come to terms with the fact that we may walk out, like, not to say that we're not going to stand here with absolute belief and absolute faith and like, and really calling forth all of the healing and everything that's needed, but that this is the life experience, and that it may be that we walk out of here and we have to say that we're going to be okay, and that together we're going to be okay. And I just remember that moment being like, but then that intuition kicks in. And there were so many moments that didn't make sense to anyone else, that was just like, no, we're not going here. We're going here. We're going to go to this doctor that's, going to cut him open. We don't even know why. He can't even tell us why, but he's saying this is what he's going to do. And over here, they're trying to treat him for pneumonia and give him a spinal tap and like all of this stuff. That's a lot less invasive, but it was just like, that's not correct. We just knew that it wasn't correct. But those things just sound so crazy in the moment. And then later on, you're looking back and you're like, where did those answers come from? It's so wild. But yeah, so I like the puzzle, when you're saying like the puzzle pieces, like those really intense moments, it's like, it unlocks something that you may not have ever had before if those moments didn't happen.
Well, I think it's definitely given me a lot of faith, right?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of faith. I have a lot of belief. And I also trust my intuition. I call them downloads, but I mean, anybody who works with me, like especially my team that works with me, they'll ask me a question and I'll say, I'm just going to meditate on that and I'll get back to you.
Yeah. Let me sit with that for a minute.
I don't make charts or graphs or things like that. I just meditate on it, or I go for a walk and I just wait and see like what drops into my field, my awareness, and I trust that guidance. I actually trust that that guidance is coming from the higher power, is not coming from me, because
Yeah.
our ego gets in the way. Our ego says it has to be this, this, and this,
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Like I had many people say to me after my husband's death, especially someone who like really knew my life story at the time. She's like, wow, like the worst things just happened to you. Like, it's not fair. And I was like, who told us life was supposed to be fair?
Yeah.
But if we really believe, I do believe that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, this soul's journey that I'm on, I had to go through that experience. And I actually ultimately believe, because of the work that I currently do, that I had to go through every single negative experience that I've experienced in my life so that I could actually learn everything that I know so that I can actually help others.
Yeah.
That's really why I've gone through all of that. And that's why it's my mission. I just recently resurrected my YouTube channel because I said to the person that I'm bringing in to help me with YouTube, I said, I have so much information inside of me and I can't share it in 60 to 90-second bites on Instagram and on TikTok because it's just not enough time. So I need to like get this information out into the world. We need to start creating content. We need to start putting it out there. And I'm just going to trust that anybody who is meant to find this information finds it. Number one, so that they understand if that they're struggling in their life, that they can call on a higher power, whatever they want to call that, whether they want to call it God, whatever they want to call it. It's not my place to tell
Yeah.
somebody what to believe, but to call on that higher power and wait for the, trust the guidance that comes. And if someone's dealing with a chronic illness, for them to understand that there's more than just the medical model. Like, the body is powerful, it is capable of healing itself. And there are some amazing ways to make that happen. And I know I've reversed my illness 100% holistically. We didn't get to that. So in
Yeah.
2019, I embarked on a regenerative health protocol that allowed me to reverse hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's 100% holistically. I've been medication free now for almost 5 years. I feel amazing. The depression, the brain fog, the weight, the anxiety, the chronic pain, all of that is gone, you know? And so I've changed how I do my days, how I live my life, and become a lot more aware of what's in the food, what's in the water, what's in the atmosphere, what is, happening in the world. So much that I wasn't even aware of, even, like, let's say 10 years ago.
Mm.
And I've expanded my knowledge considerably to take in all this information, apply it, understand it, and really distill down. Like, when someone comes to me that is dealing with an autoimmune condition or cancer or some other chronic health issue, really figuring out like what the best strategy is for them. What is my road to health took, trial and error. Like, I spent 6 years on medication and I tried different things that didn't work. Then I did like a 6-month protocol and I was off the meds. And I like to tell people, like, right now I'm in the biohacking phase of my life where I just try things to biohack to see how much better my body
Yeah.
can, how
Yeah.
much better I can feel. Like, now I'm just playing. But most people don't understand what is possible because they've been told their entire life that if they get XYZ illness, that's it. It's game over.
Yeah, we're going through that right now with a family member of like, hey, you can absolutely turn this around, but it's like they have to come to it
Yeah.
themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, everyone's like, I'm going to be broadcasting this information out there, but only those who are ready to receive it will receive it and do the work. Because here's the thing, you can't reverse. The first question I always ask anyone who reaches out to me is, are you prepared to change your diet and your lifestyle? Because I don't sell magic beans.
Right.
But I can teach you how your body works. I can teach you how to start to make the changes to really reverse this situation, but I can't do the work for you. And the first thing is always belief. Like, I believed in my body's ability to heal itself. I didn't know what I could do to make that happen, but I believed it was possible. And then I just was like willing to try things. And sometimes I have people message me and they're like, well, I tried this and this and this and it didn't work. And I said, but what if this is the thing that works? Now I know it's going to work,
Mm-hmm.
but I've been in that place where I've tried a bunch of stuff and it didn't work. And now I'm just frustrated and annoyed and angry. And it's like, but that's not going to get you where you want to go.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you haven't found the thing, then you need to keep looking. And one of the things that I tell potential clients all the time is, because sometimes people spend too much time and energy trying the wrong thing. And I'm like, if you've worked with somebody for a year and nothing has changed, then they're giving you the wrong protocol, because I don't know why they just don't have the proper knowledge. Like, and there's a lot of people, unfortunately, that don't have the proper knowledge. And all I can say is, like, when you're on the proper protocol, you should feel a difference within the first 30 days. Like,
Yeah.
my clients feel a difference within the first week. They start to feel different because that's how fast our body can respond. Even, and that's the miracle of the human body, that someone can do, like, basically abuse their body
We're
for
so
lack
resilient. Yes.
for lack of a better word, through food, through alcohol, through drugs, through thoughts, through relationships. They can abuse themselves in all these ways. And yet, the second you make that decision and then you start to do the thing that is actually putting together the puzzle pieces of how the body works, your body starts to respond very quickly, you know?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, you're finally giving me the the hydration or the, whatever it is that I've been
It's
craving.
true.
I was just thinking about that yesterday, just like how resilient our bodies are, like with all of these interviews that I do, just learning about the environmental toxicities that we are, or toxicants, I guess is the proper word, that we are exposed to on the daily, and how we can just keep getting up and keep going to work. And I'm like, keep pushing through. I was telling this to my husband too, of like, just about the importance of our lifestyle at home with our babies, of like, if we just fall into society's norms and we just allow for this to continue to unfold, one of us is going to end up like, it's absolutely like not certain, but it's like very highly likely that one of the people in our household is going to end up with some severe autoimmune disorder or cancer or whatever it is, because that's just where we're at now, where our body is
Mhm.
so overloaded with toxicants that if we're not doing what we need to do in order to unload that toxic bucket and give our body the strength and build that resilience, it it's just, you can see it happening. Like every few children are going through some massive, you know, either autoimmune, severe allergies, cancers. It's just wild to watch it unfold.
Yeah, so in regenerative health, like 95% of illness is related to diet and lifestyle. So in regenerative health, this whole idea is there's root causes of these 95% of chronic illnesses. First is chemical and heavy metal toxicity. Like it's not a maybe, it's a definite.
Right.
The second is whatever genetic predisposition someone has through their family lineage. I love it too. Um, and then the third one is obviously diet and lifestyle. So even if someone has a genetic predisposition to certain chronic illnesses, through diet and lifestyle, you can upregulate or downregulate genes. Like that's exciting. That should make
It's
anyone
so
feel
exciting.
empowered because it does not matter what gets passed down your family lineage. You can upregulate genes. Like I work with tools that help upregulate genes. Just by changing your diet, you can get rid of the genes that are, or actually downregulate and turn off the genes that create certain chronic illness and upregulate other genes. And then chemical and heavy metal toxicity, like it is so prevalent that we all have to stay on top of it. Like
Yeah.
it's not something that you do when your body breaks down. It's something that you need to be doing as preventative maintenance. And it's kind of funny to me that people will take better care of their cars. You know, they'll get the regular oil changes, they'll clean it, they'll make sure they put gas in the car, right? And yet when it comes to their own body, they run it right to the ground and then they're like, I don't understand how this happened.
Yeah.
You don't understand. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You've got like a card stamped going to like the, your local drive-through. You're collecting those stamps because you're showing up every day. Like, what do you think is happening?
Yeah.
And so there's some really, like, I tell people all the time, it's like you change your diet and you change how you hydrate, you're going to profoundly change your health. And then, yes, we probably need to do some deeper chemical, like detoxes. We need to do parasite cleansing. That is a must for absolutely everyone. And there may be other nuances and things that we need to get at that are particular to you. But at the foundation, we got to change hydration, we got to change diet
Yeah.
and see how your body responds and what starts to shift. And I mean, like I have somebody that I've been working with recently and we changed her diet. She's a breastfeeding mom. We changed her diet, we changed her hydration, and within 2 weeks she lost 10 pounds.
Wow.
She's dealing with Hashimoto's.
That's
So
wild.
yeah. And I mean, obviously she has a lot more work to do. we're just like scratching the surface. But that goes to show the body responds very, very quickly. And when someone's carrying excess weight, all it is inflammation and toxicity.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we start to alkalize the body and we start to hydrate the body properly at the cell level, things start to shift. The terrain starts to shift very quickly. That's how fast it can happen.
So
and of course, there's like more work.
So with regenerative health, do you basically like with the when you're seeing a patient or a client, is it really that you're starting with like the lowest hanging fruit, like you were saying with like, I mean, I hate to say that food is the low hanging fruit because it is hard for people to change their diets, but like, are you going straight to supplementation, or are you going through like a period of lifestyle change before you ever even consider supplementation?
I don't do supplements. Like
Okay.
I deal in whole
I love
foods
that.
and superfoods. And the reason I don't deal with supplements is that most supplements are not that well made. And if they're lab made and they're synthetic, they're going to put a stress on the liver and the gut, which we don't want. There are certain, when I've done this for several years, like I've been in practice for several years. And so certain themes start to show up with people, and universally, I got a thumbs up from Zoom.
Zoom said, yeah, that was great.
Yeah. So the pattern that I've seen in clients is, hey, thumbs up, is issues with gut. Gut issues are universal. Nobody
Right.
doesn't have a damaged gut because of diet, pharmaceuticals, environmental toxins, herbicides, pesticides, things like glyphosate. Everybody's breathing in glyphosate. They don't even know it. But because glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup,
Right.
and they spray Roundup on pretty much everything. And even if you're eating organic, it doesn't matter because glyphosate is a water soluble toxin. So it's in our atmosphere. So there's no way to avoid it. And therefore, it's important to get it out of the body. So it's important to understand that by changing the diet, it's going to move the needle. By changing diet and hydration, you're going to see the biggest shift because water is the carrier of nutrients to our cells and tissues. And food, like are the nutrients we intake, is what our body makes cells and tissues out of. So if we can upgrade that, it's going to have a huge shift. Now, the thing with supplements is that most supplements are isolates. They're not food sourced. And at the cell level, that can displace vital nutrients. And over time, it can actually result in nutrient imbalances. So the body recognizes whole foods, the body recognizes superfoods. It knows what to do with those nutrients, and it's able to actually utilize them far more effectively than supplementation. And I mean, I used to supplement. I was somebody that took daily multivitamins and omegas and all these things, and I don't do any of that stuff anymore.
Wow.
And I'm 100% whole food, plant based. I don't supplement B12. I don't supplement anything. I get it all from foods and superfoods.
That's amazing. I love that. Yeah, I went through a really big stage where I was buying all of the supplements, and it was just like I didn't really know what I was doing, and oftentimes I felt worse having just put all of these things in me that I don't, you know what I mean? Like I didn't really have a good game plan. So I love the approach of going I mean, even if it's like at some point you are going to do something, in my mind it's like you always should start with the real things first.
Start with the real thing, like understand that your body knows what to do with it and trust it. So here's the thing, like I see the pattern that I see universally across everyone that comes to me is gut issues, adrenal issues, which makes very much sense because so many people are stressed out and running around. So it makes sense that they have adrenal imbalances, and then liver issues.
Yeah.
The liver bit makes a lot of sense because there's so much toxicity in the environment. And a lot of people will say, well, I don't really need to detox. We have like detox organs. Yes, but our body wasn't designed to deal with thousands of chemicals on a daily basis through our food, our water, our atmosphere, our personal care products. And the thing that I've seen recently since the start of this year is I have this 10-page health questionnaire that goes over all the different endocrine glands. And so many people, like I would say 99% of people that come to me, their entire endocrine system is down.
Mm.
And I attribute that to all the toxins in the environment as well as microplastics.
Oh, plastics. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when did I see you talk a lot about parasites, because I think everyone
Yes.
walks around with parasites, especially if you like have animals in your home and stuff. But so when did that kind of come into being such a big part of your practice? And when did you start, like when you went through, recovering from Hashimoto's and hyperthyroidism, like was that what you had like is that what you did? You did parasite cleanse, or did that come later?
No, I did a parasite cleanse as a part of that, and
Okay.
I've done parasite cleansing since then. So, like, what's important to understand about parasites is a lot of times people think, well, that's just something that happens in third world countries. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. Everyone gets them. Everyone's exposed to them. You can pass them on between family members. So like when we do a parasite cleanse in our household, everybody does them, including the dogs. We do it as a family to make sure. And I have dogs, so it's hang just like that they bark. Hey guys, be quiet.
That's so funny. They're like, they're talking about
No, hey guys, you're not in the conversation. Thank you. Uh, so, so it's impossible for me to avoid getting them, and so therefore, I actually think that doing 2 to 3 parasite cleanses a year is smart. And when I talk to certain friends of mine, like people that come from, like, say, a Caribbean culture, they remember, you know, having to drink certain things to detox parasites because it's a part of their culture to do
wow.
that twice a year. Now, for some reason, it's completely lost in North America. Um, and with autoimmune conditions, with really any chronic health issue, parasites are definitely a factor, because what's happening is that when our body is dealing with a parasite load, it actually affects our immune system in a negative way. The immune system can only do so much, right? So if it's trying to handle parasites and it's dealing with other things, eventually the system goes down,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's why I say that doing regular parasite cleanses is just like smart maintenance. Just like you wouldn't think twice about getting an oil change for your car, I don't think twice about doing a parasite cleanse 2 to 3 times a year. I've done some deep parasite cleansing in 2024, and I have been shocked at what has come out of my body. And I'm like, if that's coming out of me, and I'm somebody who's very health conscious, I'm someone who's really health conscious. I can't even imagine the average person who is eating a lot of processed foods, lots of meat and dairy, like what is happening. Parasites are simply a response to the environment within the body. So when the
Yeah.
body becomes very acidic, very mucus, forming, like the foods are very mucus forming, there's all this stagnation, and so the parasites just come in to try to take advantage of that situation. And they have the ability to hijack our nervous system, our mood, our emotions. They can take over organs. So most people don't actually realize how much of a factor this is within their own health, because people don't like the idea of like having things within their body. It's like, but we're more microorganism than we are human,
Right.
right? So we've got trillions, and like we're about 75 trillion cells. Well, we have 10x that in terms of bacteria, and probably 10x of the bacteria when it comes to things like viruses. We have microorganisms that we have symbiotic relationships with that are beneficial for our health. For example, the good bacteria in our gut, but we've got good bacteria on our skin and every other place in our body. It's the ones that are pathogenic that we need to be concerned about. So when someone's dealing with an autoimmune condition or cancer, or they've got brain fog, or they're struggling with constipation or joint pain and all of these like things that are uncomfortable, well, now we know that there's an imbalance. So we need to address that, right?
What's your thoughts about all of the different parasite cleanses that are out there? Are you very specific about what people do? Yeah.
I am super, super specific. And I have like, that's why if someone goes onto my page, they can't just find a link for a parasite cleanse.
Right.
And the reason is that it is really individual to the person. You know, I would never give the same type of parasite cleanse to a woman who's pregnant or breastfeeding that I would give to somebody who is healthy, and someone who is dealing with a chronic health issue. There's a different situation going on. So I really don't like all these like parasite cleanses that are being advertised, because I think people don't actually understand how seriously this can mess them up if they're doing the wrong thing. And I laugh at anyone who's selling like a 3-day parasite cleanse. I'm like, that's not even a thing. Like, it's impossible for something to be addressed in 3 days, you
Yeah.
know? You didn't create the situation in your body in 3 days. What makes you think you're gonna get rid of it in 3 days? Like, I'm sorry, it's not possible.
Yeah, a lot
And
of them we could be living with them since we were children, you
it's
know?
true.
Yeah.
I've released like, you know, not to get crazy, but I've released like some 20-inch worms. There's no
Wow.
way that 20-inch worm just happened last week. That
Yeah.
thing was hiding out in my body for a long time. And
Wow.
finally, I decided at the start of this year. So for all the work that I've done on my health, I'm always learning. I'm always like educating myself. And I actually think that because of the life that I led up to, you know, maybe 5 years ago, and becoming much more conscious of my diet and my lifestyle, I think everything else that I was doing previous, I had, you know, years of lots of eating sugar, alcohol, fast food. Um, and I think like if we want to get really trippy, you know, everything is frequency and energy. I also had a lot of toxic relationships throughout my life. And I actually think that some of the parasites that have manifested in my body are those energies that I drew in that need to be expelled out. And I decided at the start of 2024, I was like, okay, that's it. We're going deep this year. We're going to do like a deep internal um, you know, cleanse and seeing what comes up. And that's why I've been releasing like this crazy stuff.
Wow.
And so I did like 2 90-day parasite cleanses. I did one at the start of the year, then I took a little pause, and then I went deep again. I'm near the end of this round, and then I'm going to be able to pause it until later in the year. But that's why I'm not a fan of the 10 days or the 3 days. I
Yeah.
have this whole process. So when someone comes to me, it's like we really talk about what's going on with their health. Are there elimination pathways open? Because if their elimination pathways aren't open, we can't do a parasite cleanse. It's going to back up their system even more and create a lot of problems. So that's why it's not smart to just buy some random cleanse and do it. Now, what do I mean by open elimination pathways? The laxative industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry in North America because people can't poop. So if you cannot poop, you cannot be doing a parasite cleanse. Your body isn't ready.
Oof.
So there has to be preparation. Like everyone who works with me, we do a month-long preparation to leading into it. And then we'll do like a couple of gentle ones, parasite cleanses, like a couple of gentle rounds, and then see where the body's at and also see how the person's doing. And then we'll do some more prep, and then we'll go into like something that's going to be more of like a 60 to a 90 dayer. Then from there, we kind of assess.
Yeah.
And so there's this constant kind of checking in and making sure to see how the body is responding, right? And it, like, even in the parasite cleansing that I've done this year, I've had some challenging days.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who's a practitioner. I know this work, and I've still had challenging days. I had days where I needed to just lay on my couch in my office and do nothing. Thankfully, it was a Saturday. Um, and then I've had other days where I've been kind of like really emotional. I'm like, why am I so upset, or why am I so triggered? And then I'll be like, oh yeah, because I'm parasite cleansing, and it's not me, it's them. And they know that it's time to leave.
Yeah.
And sure enough, later that day, I'll end up releasing some parasites.
That's so
And I'm like,
crazy.
yeah, so like this, and I mean, I also have a community of practitioners, and we share notes with each other. We do this kind of intensive work, and everybody's kind of at a different place in their journey. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's necessary work, but it's not something that you should do by yourself, especially your first time out. Make sure you're working with someone who's qualified to actually guide you through it properly and prepare your body properly. Then maybe after that, once you have a better understanding, then you can kind of do things more solo.
Right.
But I wouldn't dive into it. And heavy metal cleansing is also a big part of parasite cleansing, like prior to parasite cleansing, because a lot of parasites, they feed on certain heavy metals, they feed on certain nutrients and vitamins. And so we actually want to take the time to weaken them first before we,
Mm.
use the language, go for the kill.
So do you work just like one-on-one with people, or do you take, I know everybody need it would be different. So do you ever take groups of people? Like how do you work with, is it one on?
I do work one-on-one with people, and I also have a group membership. And in the
Okay.
group membership, I'm able to put out protocols and then also put out notes of like, okay, if you're dealing with Lyme, you're going to have to do this instead of this. And, I'm
Awesome.
able to put in that nuance, which is really, really important. Um, so that people are getting the proper guidance. And in that group program, if they still want to get some one-on-one with me, they can, outside of that like just book with me, and we can do a 30-minute session and just kind of make sure that they're
The right
where they need
path.
to be. Yeah.
So where does someone go to sign up for that?
It's on my website, or if they go to my Instagram, the group program's called Elevate, so they can sign up there, or they can just do one-on-one. The link for that is there as well. It's pretty, I'm pretty reachable on
Nice. That's awesome.
searchable, findable on social media, and I mean, I'm gonna
You're just Julie Brar on Instagram, right?
on Instagram and
Yeah,
TikTok,
full
and
name.
then on YouTube, it's Balanced Life with Julie. So there's weekly content that's coming out, and I'm going to be educating on different, health situations, like how illnesses, and some of the ways to like start to address them. Be talking about parasites, obviously, and a whole slew of other things. I'm also going to bring in some clients from time to time to talk about their
Oh, I love
experience and their
that.
transformations. It's one of the things that I'm not so good at. Like, I do the work, and the client will see the success, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I need them to actually share their story. So I'm going to start having people share their story more, because I've seen some amazing transformations.
I love that. Yeah, and storytelling is always the best way to get people to like really start unlocking for them like, okay,
Yeah.
like I have the same background, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And actually, this is where I want to mention, like, for EMF protection, right?
Yeah.
Like, really understand, like, there's like these puzzle pieces that we want to get to understand how can we empower ourselves for our own personal health, right? We live in a toxic food environment. The waterways, yes, the waterways are compromised, the atmosphere is compromised. And the thing about EMFs that I find the most troubling, because of the work that I do, is that most people don't understand that being exposed to EMFs disrupts the communication between the cells.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Like that's the be all and the end all. If your cells are not able to communicate properly, then there's all this miscommunication happening, which can lead to chronic illness. Because that's like understanding how chronic illness develops in the body. Like something like cancer is really a cellular communication breakdown, and a cell gets isolated, it goes rogue, and it just starts multiplying because that's what it's designed to do, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we think of any chronic illness, what we're really dealing with is toxicity within the body, as well as, diet and lifestyle factors as well. But a big part of that is making sure that we're not being negatively impacted by EMFs. And if you're a part of modern society, which all of us are,
yeah,
then it's important to actually mitigate that as much as possible. And I have a little story around this. So I'm on my phone a lot. I'm on my devices a lot because my work is 100% virtual. And that was a conscious decision that I made 5 years ago, that I wanted to work online so I could work with more people, so I could spread the message further. The downside of that is I am constantly exposed to cell signals.
Yeah.
And I realized several months ago that just putting my phone into airplane mode wasn't enough. That I could do that, but I could still get signals from my neighbor, all my neighbors around me. And if I went to the city and I just looked and saw all the Wi-Fi, there's like, 20 to 30 different networks, and that's like hitting my body, right?
Yeah.
And then you factor in the 5G and all this other stuff that's going on, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't I give my body the best? And so that's when I started researching about EMFs and EMF protection. And I ended up like looking at Aries Tech more seriously and looking at their research and going, you know what? Yes,
this aligns.
This is what is going to align with me. And I've been using it since last fall, and I felt a difference. Just in my nervous system settling, right? Because that was what I felt the most, was I just felt like my nervous system was wired all the time. Like I could not relax.
Yeah.
And that's not good for what I do. Like, I'm very much one of those practitioners that believes in practicing what I preach. And so I didn't want to be like this ball of stress because my nervous system couldn't get settled because of all of this extra, exposure to EMFs. And so, and it is really, to me, it's like becoming aware and then becoming proactive, like just really learning about what's out. And I'm one of those people that I only work with the best. I'm like, oh, that's the best? Okay, give me that. I'm down.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it took me a while. Like I had, I started out just like unplugging my Wi-Fi at night and doing all that. And then, the EMF blankets, when I had the babies, I got those and just slowly started like creeping in. And then I learned about Aries, and I interviewed the CEO for an old podcast that I had, and like really started to understand that, okay, this wasn't just, someone who could see the fear that was kind of arising from the 5G and was like, let's create a product and, sell that product. It was like, no, this was research, like decades of research that had gone into this product prior to them ever making it a consumer product. And that really helped like me understand that, okay, this isn't like the other buttons and stickers that we see out there. But that was the really big wake up call for me, is when I interviewed a neurologist who broke down that our bodies are electrical beings. I'm like, that is such an easy way to get people to understand what's really happening. It's just as simple. It's just as simple as a disruption in communication, because yes, our body has electromagnetic frequencies and we have electromagnetic field, but that field is far different than the EMFs being emitted from man-made technology.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
when I heard it broke down like that, I was like, ah, yeah, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. And so when I think of like health, health begins at the cell level, and our body, all of the 75 trillion cells, it's this massive community. And if this community cannot communicate with each other effectively, then we have breakdown. And then we layer on top of that all, like, that's just one part of the
Right.
puzzle when it comes to creating illness in the body. The other piece is we're exposed to all this chemical and heavy metal toxicity as well. We're exposed to foods that are GMO, that are basically non-foods. I would say a vast majority of what is sold as food in across the world isn't really food.
Right.
It's like a food-like substance. And in a way, I actually think it's cheating. It's actually stealing is what it is you're getting someone to pay you for something that isn't what it's supposed to be.
Right.
And there's something really messed up about that. I don't have any issue aligning myself with companies that are creating solutions for the problems that exist in the world. Now, Aries didn't create 5G. 5G was created. And and they've been doing research prior to all of this 5G stuff. And it's understanding that there are companies out there, it's called conscious commerce, right? And there are companies out there that see the issues in the food system, with the water system, with personal care products, and all of these issues that are happening. So my question always to someone is like, why wouldn't you want the solution? And
Right.
why wouldn't you support the companies that have the solutions for you instead of continuing to support the companies that don't?
Yeah.
Like, why support McDonald's when you can support a superfoods company that is helping regenerative farmers bring regenerative foods
Yeah.
to the people? Like,
Yeah.
like, what is the disconnect? Like, I don't
Yeah.
understand the
Yeah,
disconnect.
get food that comes is like, it's crazy to think that we're buying apples that were shipped like thousands of miles or fruit that was shipped thousands of miles. It's like that was one of the first things I remember when I was like 18 when I got back from Costa Rica, and I was like, okay, I'm going to start buying food as close to me as possible.
Mhm.
Like finding farmers markets, or if it comes, in my state or something, just how far has it been? How far did it have to travel to get to you? But to think about the food system, like what you were just saying, it really is kind of mind boggling when you think about the fact that food really was just designed to like give us nourishment so that we could keep doing our day. And now it's the exact opposite. It's
Mhm.
like we're literally just consuming foods that are causing us to go down the slope.
And it's also why, like, that's also why so many people are eating as much as they're eating, is that the food doesn't actually have
The
nutrients. It
nourishment.
has minimal nutrients. And so at the cell level, the body's hungry all the time. And so it's sending those hunger signals as it's designed to do. And people are eating and eating and eating and eating. And you have to like follow the money and go, okay, well, who's making the money from all, like, just think about it logically. 3 meals a day plus 3 snacks, like, you're spending your entire day eating. What about the rest of your life? But when you're nourished on the cell level, you don't eat as much.
Yeah.
So ultimately, you're actually saving money because you're not eating as much, you're not overeating, and you're actually getting nutrients more efficiently into your body. So this is part of what I teach people, and part of, like, what I share with people is, like, it really is about maximizing the quality of nutrients coming into your body. And then the other part of that is also oftentimes, because so many people have gut issues, they have absorption issues. So even if they are lucky enough to get high quality nutrients, they may still not be absorbing those nutrients. So obviously addressing that piece of the puzzle, and allowing the body to actually regenerate itself, regenerate the gut, so that the body actually starts to absorb nutrients. But I mean, the people who get to, profit off of poor quality foods,
Mm,
it's kind of a great business model for them because they get to line their pockets at other people's expenses. And
yeah.
and the more educated we can all become about what is actually going on and then start looking for the solutions and applying those solutions, the better it is. And I mean,
Yeah.
the body is self-healing, and each of us is able to have our own health sovereignty if we choose to.
Yes, I love that. That's the perfect end to the episode. Okay, so really quick, Julie Brar on Instagram and TikTok. But what was your YouTube video or your YouTube called again?
Balance, BALANCE, Balance Life with Julie.
Balance Life with Julie. She obviously knows what she's talking about. Go check her out. Thank you, Julie, so much. I really appreciate this conversation, and I'm excited for everyone to hear it.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and check out the show notes at wave.ariestech.com.